Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the TWSN live show, live on the Right Way Sports Network's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Daniel Alameda, and I'm here with my guys. As always, we got Will Lachlan. Will, the NBA playoffs are in full swing. How we doing?
Yeah, some big games tonight. You know, we're going to see LeBron and the Lakers take on the Suns without Anthony Davis. So I'm super looking forward to this game tonight. And you know, Daniel, our teams live to fight another day. But
Yeah,
in a couple
we got
here.
we got Jake Circus with the bunk bed in the background. Jake, how we doing?
This is not just two disclaimers. My face is very red. I was in the sun a lot this weekend. It's hot in California. I know. I need to go back to Missouri. It's too hot here. This is not my number two. This is not my room. This is not my room. I don't have a bunk bed. But yeah. Happy to be back. Huge game tonight because Anthony Davis, once again, the human version of a piece of glass, decided to get injured for the 80th time in his career, leaving LeBron James once again by himself with the 2018 Cavs, the 2007 Cavs, and the 2009 Cavs all mixed into one. Oh, and the 2018 Lakers all mixed into one. That's what LeBron James has tonight against a very good Phoenix Suns team.
The LeBron and Laker fans are learning the truth about Anthony Davis. This is But we'll talk about that later.
It's okay.
We'll get into that, but we got Max Marrero also. We're gonna start off the show a little bit differently. Max, how we doing?
Doing good. My Heat got swept. They're frauds. I don't want to talk about it. My soccer team lost in the Champions League final the same day the Heat got swept. So not too hot over here at the Marrero camp, but we're still pulling through.
Yes, sir. And before we get into this show, because we got an exciting show, excited to be back here another Tuesday, another dollar, as we always say. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, right? Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got a mobile app. Download the TWSN mobile app. Find us on Instagram. Find us on Twitter. The Right Way Sports Network. We're doing a ton of huge things here. Team of 50+ people, hardworking people. And yeah, so let's just jump right into it. We're going to start off a little bit differently. Boxing. Right, boxing. A little bit more excitement. I mean, to the casual fan's eye, Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather. We got a ton. Both of these huge fights in the upcoming couple months. Let's start it out with the fight on this weekend. Logan Paul versus Floyd Money Mayweather. Max, does Logan have a chance? Logan have a chance? Talk to me.
No, he has no chance. Look, I mean, if I'm Logan, I think it's a really smart move. You know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fight arguably the greatest boxer of all time, and Floyd Money Mayweather. You know, I think Floyd was going to come here. We'll get into that later, but I do think it's arguable. But I think Floyd was going to win this fight regardless, but I think Floyd was going to kind of just do what he did with McGregor, which was, you know, let the fight last a little longer to draw a larger audience and make it more entertaining. But I think Jake Paul, his brother, made things very personal when he snatched his hat and he caused that whole fight at the end of that press conference. I think now Floyd Mayweather is going after Logan Paul, and I think he's going to try to finish Logan Paul. I don't know if he'll finish him, but I do think that Logan Paul won't stand a chance, and I don't think Logan Paul's even going to touch him that entire fight. People, you know, the casual fan's going to look at Logan Paul and say, yeah, he's the bigger guy, he's the taller guy, he's the younger guy. But people don't remember that, you know, Floyd Money Mayweather, his style is very defensive. He may not be the most powerful striker in the world, which he does have power, but his strategy is he just doesn't want to get touched. He's going to gas you out. He's going to have you fight into the latter few rounds in a boxing fight, and he's going to start striking once you're gassed out. And I think it's going to be no different against Logan Paul. I think he's going to get the best version of Floyd Money Mayweather, and I just, you know, unfortunately for Logan Paul, I think it's going to be dunzo before it even starts.
Jake,
yeah,
I
I don't think Floyd is gonna. After what happened, you're right, Max, with the whole Jake Paul stealing Floyd's hat. I don't think Floyd is gonna just play with his food, so to speak. I just don't think he's gonna play around or mess around for 1 second in this fight. And I mean, you're talking about the greatest boxer of all time. Even though maybe it's not unanimous, he probably is the greatest boxer of all time. Going up against an amateur in Jake Paul, a guy who in his last fight, he couldn't even last against a YouTuber in KSI. Like he got gassed out by him. in like the 4th and 5th rounds. This was like a couple years ago, but still. And maybe he's built up some more stamina, but I don't care. You're going against Floyd Mayweather. Who cares if you've built up more stamina since then? It doesn't matter. Like he's going to embarrass him unless this fight is rigged or staged. But it's Floyd Mayweather. I don't think he's not the kind of person. He's not the kind of man who's going to he's too prideful to stage or a fight like this. There's just no way that he would do that. So yeah, Logan Paul is going to get, well, I'm not even going to say embarrassed because my expectation is for him to get absolutely wiped out. So it wouldn't really be embarrassing if it happened.
I don't think it's going to be an embarrassment because I think both Pauls, they're at the end of the day, they're entertainers. They think they're boxers. Well, Jake Paul, I think, could be an actual boxer depending on what he does against Tyron Woodley. We'll talk about that in a sec. But they're business guys. Like, they know how this stuff works, and Logan Paul is not gonna, it's a great payday, but he's not gonna go out there and willingly get his bleep knocked into him just for a payday, because not only is it gonna destroy his entire brand, it's gonna destroy his entire ego. So I think that I feel like there is something set up to make this fight last, and I don't think that's what happened with Floyd and Conor, because that was like Conor actually maybe had a chance, but Floyd didn't do anything. No, listen, Floyd didn't do anything the first 15 minutes of that fight, and he just tired Conor out, and that's why he won. And then he actually knocked him out. His first knockout since 2011, since he knocked out Victor Ortiz. So Floyd is not a knockout guy, and again, Logan's a bigger dude. So I think there's something here that will let this fight last and actually entertain, because the Pacquiao fight was terrible. You could argue the McGregor fight was more entertaining than the Pacquiao fight. So I think that's what we're going to see here. Now, McGregor, obviously a better striker than Logan Paul, but again, Floyd's an old man. Like, Floyd is 4 or 5 years older than what he was when he fought Conor McGregor. So I think there's something here. Now, this is not boxing expert discussion right now, but I think there's something here that'll make this fight last. So I think this goes to decision. Probably not, because eventually Floyd will get to him, like he did to Conor, just because of the experience and the actual talent that's there. But again, I think this fight will last. Like, I don't think this is going to be an embarrassment by any stretch of the means. I think Logan's too smart for that.
Yeah, and it's the hardest part for me is seeing that both Paul brothers, they've been boxing. I understand, like, a lot of these boxers boxing their entire lives, but Jake and Logan have been in the gym the past 3 to 4 years, which is why I went back. I watched both KSI fights. Very, very raw, right? Logan's extremely raw, but as Jake was saying, I think his pure power and just his understanding of how much this fight actually means is going to make this last at least 3 rounds. Like, Floyd will not knock out Logan Paul right away. I don't see that happening. If it happens, he'll end up gassing him out and just piecing him up in the later rounds. But I don't know. Let's switch it over to Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley, right? I'm a huge Jake Paul fan for this, right? Because Jake Paul's answered every single question up until this point, and now this is the legitimate test, right? I still believe even if Jake wins this, people will still find ways to discredit this. But I think this is the one where is he a legit boxer? Max, does Jake Paul have any sort of chance against Woodley?
The only reason why I would say he has a chance is because he has experience in the boxing ring. Yes, he's fought nobodies and Ben Askren, who, he can't strike to save his life, but that is experience, and that's more experience than Tyron Woodley has in the ring. Remember, he comes from the MMA world. It's a different style. But, to answer your question about who I think is going to win, I think Tyron Woodley should win, and I think Tyron Woodley should knock him out pretty early just because of his sheer power. As an MMA fan, I feel like the MMA community doesn't really talk about Tyron Woodley's power as much as they should, because that's not really the way he fought. He was very much a patient fighter. Yes, you would see parts of his game that would incorporate power, but that wasn't really how he would try to, that's not how he would strategize for fights. But I think we're going to see his raw power come out here, and it seems like he has a message to send to Jake Paul, because he's already come out publicly and said, he's trying to represent the entire MMA community, the entire, I guess, combat sport community, because this is boxing, in trying to just say, you know what, we don't care who you are. We don't care what your background is. You can't just walk into our sport and assume you're going to be the champ. And I think Tyron Woodley will send Jake Paul that message. Now, again, I think Jake Paul does have a chance only because of the slight experience that he has, but I don't know if it'll be enough against a guy like Tyron Woodley, who is a legitimate striker and is a guy who has the most power out of any guy Jake Paul has faced thus far. And I think it'll be entertaining if you like seeing Jake Paul get knocked out.
Jake Paul's the favorite here. Jake Paul opened up as I think it's like minus 160 right now. When's the fight? When is it?
I think it's
soon, right?
August. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple months away. So yeah, Jake Paul's he opened up as the favorite. Surprisingly, I don't know what it is with Jake Paul fighting Missouri alums that were decent in the UFC. Really, Woodley was really good in the UFC, but good guys in the UFC that over the last 4 years have been absolutely terrible. Like this is another second. Like what's going on here? But yeah, I don't disagree. I'm questioning why Jake Paul is the favorite because again, he's not really experienced in the ring, but again, neither is Tyron Woodley. But just based off the pure power and the measurables, and based off of what Woodley has done with his striking in the UFC, that has to carry over to boxing, right? Like we really haven't seen it before. See someone from the UFC, a great striker, other than again Conor, but like no, not really. So I think it'll be close. I think it's gonna be really interesting. Again, I'm not a boxing genius or a boxing analyst by any stretch of the imagination, but questioning certainly why Jake Paul is the favorite here.
Yeah, no, he you shouldn't be. But hey, for once, Jake Paul has actually earned a bit of respect from me. Not that he cares at all. He's finally has a bit of competition. So good job, Jake Paul. Just on another note, I find it a bit sad that Woodley has to kind of stoop down to go cross sports and get a win. It's just a little bit sad and unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I think that's a bit of a more motivation since he's been on a pretty bad losing streak. He's going to come out with a fire, even if it's a different sport and it's his first time. I don't care. I think you're right.
There you go.
That's the money. And
I don't see it. I don't see it as a negative. I don't see it as a negative because while I agree, this past few years in Tyron Woodley's MMA career have been a disaster, hence why he's been released by the UFC. He still is a very respected fighter. He's still very able to fight most guys. And this is his largest payday ever. Remember, the issue with the UFC is a lot of the fighters, even though the big names do get compensated well compared to the other MMA fighters, they still get 2 or 3 times as much money in the boxing ring. So Tyron Woodley's taking advantage of the fact that, this fight has been naturally building up for some time. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go catch another fight purse and take care of business. It's going to be, like he said, it's the easiest fight of his career and it's the highest paying fight of his career. So it's a win-win in my opinion.
It's all about the money here, right? Woodley, first off, Woodley, this isn't just Woodley, like Askren. I don't even think like they're going back and forth. This has Woodley and Jake Paul were kind of going at it in the pre-fight locker room, I believe. And this kind of stemmed from that Ben Askren fight. And Woodley's kind of the guy that was kind of egging it on, right? And if Woodley wants it, go get it. And he's getting, I guarantee you, at least double the amount of any paycheck that he receives at the UFC. So for Woodley, this is a no-brainer, right? Because you're going in with the expectation of this guy's a bum. This guy hasn't been hit by a shot ever. And for Jake Paul, it's exact same, right? I've said this time and time again. This is the right path to go for Jake Paul. You go YouTuber, and then you go a bum UFC boxer, and then now you go keep progressing. And if he goes on, if he goes on to win former NBA player, so athlete, UFC fighter, and then good UFC fighter, if he goes on to win this, he's a pro fighter. No one can take that away from him, but it's obviously a huge if. So I don't know. For me, this is entertaining as hell. I was never a huge boxing fan, but this is kind of making me watch. It's making eyes drawn onto the sport, whether it's good or bad. I don't know. I like this. But let's switch it over to the NBA. Let's talk about the second round matchup first off. 2 teams, the Nets and the Bucks. The Max, your Miami Heat are out. Rough series for them. We kind of talked about it last week. But let's talk about the Nets versus the Bucks. How close of a series will this be, or will the Nets blow the Bucks out of the water? Will, start us off.
Yeah, this is going to be a close one. I really think these are 2 At this point, I'm going to say these are, heavyweights in the NBA, especially in the East. These are easily the two best teams in the East. I don't really care about the Sixers. I'm sorry. The Nets are the best, and I think the Bucks are second. I think this is going to be a 7-game series. Before the playoffs, I was kind of thinking Nets in 6, but I'm more towards leaning Nets in 7 now. And it's a combination of two things. I mean, I've thought for some time now that the Bucks, they are the best matchup for the Nets. Just head to head, you look at how they can match up. Just on the court, you have a Drew Holiday, which you can put on a Kyrie Irving and a James Harden, and now you're not going to it's going to be tough to shut one of those guys down, but limit them is certainly a possibility since Drew Holiday is just an excellent perimeter defender. And you have a guy like Chris Middleton and some other guys like Bobby Portis off the bench who can match up, and then Giannis can match up sort of on Kevin Durant. So it's just matchup wise, it's good. And then the fact that the Bucks are coming in as hot as they are and also as rested, Giannis basically in the last couple games, Giannis was just they didn't really need Giannis to go off at all. They were perfectly fine with Bryn Forbes hitting 6 threes a game in that series. And so Giannis I think he's rested. I think Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, I think they're rested and they're feeling themselves. They're hot right now. The Nets, assuming they take care of business, they'll move on from the Celtics. So this is going to be a super entertaining series. It's going to be super close, and I'm going to say the Nets are going to edge them out because even though Giannis is going to average over 30 or 30 to 35 points a game, he has to, and he should. I think in the regular season he averaged 40 and 11 against this team, so that he should be doing that in the playoffs as well. But despite that, I think the Kevin Durant, Kyrie and Harden, that's just a bit too much, especially in a game 7. You get those guys, if it's a close game late, who's going to be making the more shots? Those guys are like Chris Middleton, Holiday, and Giannis.
Will,
I'm going to take
this is not going 7. So I'm sorry. Listen,
no, this is going.
I saw obviously, I mean, I'm watching against my Celtics, right? I'm watching against my Celtics. This is scary. Right. And it's the first game, when they were getting their legs under them, it was all iso ball, and they still play iso ball. But Kyrie, Harden, Durant, they literally can switch off iso, 1-1-1. Kevin Durant, he's looked good. Right. Kevin Durant, he's in the conversation for the best player in the world. I'm sorry. Kevin Durant is that talented. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, he has Harden, he has Kyrie. The number one on that team is Kevin Durant. No question. I'm sorry. And the Bucks, they played great against the Heat, swept them. They're coming in as hot as they are. But I'm sorry. That team, I'm betting on that team inside of 6 games. Those 3, Joe Harris, I mean, he went off for a
Nets
huge
in 5.
game. Nets in 6. I'll take Nets in 6.
I like Nets in 6 as well.
Nets in 6. And that was mine before the playoffs.
If there is no injury to the big 3, I think it's in 6 because they are scary as hell.
Yeah, I mean I had Nets in 6 before the playoffs, but just looking at how the Bucks, what they were able to do, how the impact Drew Holiday had, and as well as their role players stepping up as they did, and the fact that Mike Budenholzer actually made some decent coaching adjustments and kind of outcoached Eric Spoelstra, that actually gives me a bit of hope, even more hope in the Bucks' chances here. It's good. Look, it's going to be super entertaining because there's just so many stakes and so many narratives at play here for this series. I mean, imagining if the Nets lose in the second round with this level of star power, and then also, if Giannis can't perform. I mean, if Giannis performs and he loses, I don't really care. But if he doesn't perform and he loses, that's a bad look. I know Jake is going to have a ball on that if that ever happens. And honestly, I'll join.
Whatever happens, well,
I doubt it.
Will, we're going to be here, not next show because the series will be going on, but in about 2 shows, we will be having that conversation about when that happens. But, all right, William, let's have a chat. So you mentioned that this series is going to be really close, but the Nets they're going to be too much. They're going to be too much for Giannis and the Bucks. And you mentioned Giannis or Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday taking the shots. Well, I wonder why they have to take the shots. Now, what I'm about to say is not a complete Giannis hate, but the Bucks are a very good team. And arguably, I said this 2 shows ago, last time I was on, that this is Giannis is probably his best team, if it's his second best team at worst. But they're going to run into the Nets in the second round. It's a tough matchup. I get it. But look, eventually they have to overcome it. They have to do it. And they as the Bucks, because It hasn't just been Giannis. It's been coaching. It's been lack of shooting. It's been lack of clutch, coming up in clutch situations. And yes, a lot of it has been Giannis, but the team has also let Giannis down. I know last year in the Heat series, the only game the Bucks won in that series was the game Giannis didn't play. But look, they have to get it done, and it's gonna come down to Giannis. It has to. It's the team. Listen, no, it's the team, but it has to come down to Giannis. And
Jake, I just
you
realized
cannot make.
something. Jake, I just realized something. It's June 1st, so it's the month of June, and
yes, it is.
And Giannis is still playing playoff basketball.
June basketball.
Yeah, Giannis is still playing June basketball.
So it's William. Yes, it is June basketball, and it's. But I think the Bucks have something that the Nets don't. That could keep them. That should keep them in this series. The Nets have played what? 16, 17 games with those three players together this entire season. They played 9 or 10 in the regular. So 10 or 11 in the regular season, and then they've now played 5 after tonight. The game's tonight. So this is like the 13th or 14th game that they've all played together. This Bucks team has been together for 3 or 4 years. This team has been together. This has been the core of players for so long. They've lost so many heartbreaking playoff series to Toronto. Who else? Who else have they lost to? I don't know. Other teams. Miami last year. Then all those first round exits when Giannis was a little baby.
Giannis wasn't even an MVP. He wasn't even a superstar then. Who cares? All right. Look, the reality is.
So the advantage is that they have been together, and a slight comparison that I'll make is in 2011 when that Mavericks team with Dirk, who was there for 80 years, they had old Jason Terry, but they were together. They had that core of players, and the Heat team. Yes, the Heat did not play well, but them not being together for very long, just building a team based off. Okay, we're gonna get this player. We're gonna get this player. We're gonna take Chris Bosh. We're gonna take LeBron, and see how they do. And the Mavericks beat them. Now the Bucks. The Bucks and Nets is a little bit more better of a matchup here, but just I'm going to use that comparison. The Bucks team has been together for so long. I think that is a serious advantage for them. But if we're here in 2 weeks and Giannis averaged 21, shooting 41% on his little running and dunking, possible. and they how is that?
I don't see how that's possible.
We're here. It's June. It's June. It's the flower month. He's never played basketball this late in the year before. The weather's warm. How do we know that?
He averaged 40 against them in the regular season.
Jake, they're going to put. I disagree.
He's also won 2 regular season MVPs, but have we seen him play in a finals game?
Jake. My thing is listen, I'm on you with this whole Giannis thing, but I think you're phrasing it wrong. He's going to put up stats in the middle of the game. That's where he succeeds. I think this Nets team won't stop him. I don't see any world in where he'll put up 30, he'll put up 35, but I don't give a damn. It's gonna be in the fourth quarter, right? It's gonna be the fourth quarter, and that's why my whole thing with him is why the hell am I having Chris Middleton? Why the hell am I having Drew Holiday hold the ball within the last 3 minutes? That's where your best player is supposed to have the ball.
It's because he can't make free throws. It's very simple.
Exactly.
He's because he can't make free throws. That's the biggest flaw in his game. We've been saying this for a long time on this show, right? It's not, people are like, oh, if he was a jump shooter, he'd be, the next best thing since LeBron, which there's no doubt about that. But I guarantee you the biggest flaw in his game is his free throw shooting. It's horrible. It's terrible. But let me tell you guys something. Look, while I do think we all agree that the Bucks will be competitive in the series because they're too good to not be competitive.
Yeah.
I just think the only way the Bucks win this series is if one of the 3 guys for Brooklyn goes down with an injury, to be honest with you. I just don't see how this Bucks team beats this Nets team fully healthy the way they have been playing, especially as we've seen in the first round. I find it very hard to believe any team, with the exception of the Lakers with a healthy AD, but we'll get into that later, can beat that team over a 7-game series. I don't think it could happen.
Yeah. One last thing is just really the key for the Bucks. It had Drew Holiday he was huge for the Heat series. He's going to be even bigger in this series. He's absolutely the X factor on both sides, and maybe even for the entire playoffs, just in general, because you need a guy who can actually strap up and try and limit Kyrie Irving or James Harden. Drew Holiday was able to do that in one of their games earlier this season. Now, again, James Harden missed that like back-to-back. The Bucks won both those games. Harden wasn't playing, so I don't really put too much stock into those two games at all. The only thing I put stock into is Drew Holiday potentially being able to limit Kyrie or James Harden a bit, which is huge because if one of those guys for the Nets' big three is off their game, like they are pretty vulnerable because then you only have two stars just basically scoring everything, but they're going to allow everything on defense. And also Giannis is like, there's no reason at all he should be averaging 21 on like 40% from the field. Like that's just, I don't even see how that's logically possible.
I get what you're saying. I completely get what you're saying about Drew Holiday, and I think there's a difference from important players and very key players to being the X factor in the series. No, the X factor is Giannis because he's never done it. Giannis, go out and drop 50 and win. Like go in Brooklyn, drop 50. Like there should be no reason why he can't do that because he hasn't done it. Giannis has zero signature playoff moments. I go back. He does? Because I go back to 2019, a very crucial game 6 against Toronto, when Giannis didn't even he didn't touch the ball the last 2 minutes of the game. They ran that offense through Chris Middleton. Why? Because Giannis is non-existent late in games because he can't shoot and he can't make free throws. Last year in game 3 against Miami on the road, Giannis scored 0 points in the last 5 minutes of regulation. Just this year, game 1, he went 0 for 11 on shots outside the restricted area. And then I think in game 4, he didn't score the entire fourth, like it was like the entire fourth quarter, he went like 1 for 8.
No, this is the first half. He wasn't good. In the fourth quarter, he was closing Miami Heat out in the fourth quarter, baby.
One of game 3 or 4, like that happened. Okay. We went like 1 of 8 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
but like this is the thing. This is a consistent. This is a consistent trend where he just hasn't done it late in games. He's going up against one of the greatest closers in the league in Kyrie Irving, who has done it on a multitude of different teams in a multitude of different years, making clutch shots, getting clutch stops, making layups, getting foul calls and ones. He did it in Game 7 of the finals. He did it on Christmas Day against Golden State. Like, and also Kevin Durant, who like, pretty much the finals winning 3 in LeBron's face back-to-back years, and that's still painful.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is just like I understand. Look, the pressure's on Giannis. I don't deny that at all, because he's got to step up. But I'm just saying, there's really, unlike with the Raptors and with the Heat last year, there's not a reason in which I see him being able to struggle. And if he does, look, I'm going to be as critical as anyone else is going to be, frankly. But it's like there's just a reason that it should happen.
It's not. But it's not because the Nets are too much. Look, if the Nets were too much,
because the Nets don't have anything on defense. That's why.
But if this series goes back to Milwaukee for the second time, there is no reason it should go 7. The Nets should not win it. The Nets should not win in 6 games because that means they're going to Milwaukee game 6 and winning in their building. Like Giannis should not let that happen. Yeah. If Giannis is so great. Like, and again, I'll compare him to 26-year-old. Look, LeBron could not beat Boston until he was 26. He came so close against twice or once when he was in Cleveland. He lost to them twice when he was in Cleveland. He came really close the last time before he went to Daniel White. Before he went to Miami, and then he had in back-to-back years he had career-defining playoff moments in TD Garden against Boston on his way to making the finals, and then 2012 actually winning his first ring right after beating Boston after that game 6 where
talking about the Nets and Bucks or LeBron.
No, I know, but LeBron was 26, 27, and again he struggled and he had a great playoff moments, but he didn't get it done. Didn't have a team, but now Giannis has that team. He's 26, 27 years old. He has 2 MVPs just like LeBron did at that time. He needs to get it done. If this series goes 6, it should go 7. Yeah. And if he loses in 7, we didn't get it. It sucks. The Nets are very good. But if they win in 6, if the Nets take this in their own building, it's not because they were too much. It's because Giannis didn't do enough.
The way the path for this Bucks team to win the series, you got to come out on fire, right? It's the game is in. It starts off in Brooklyn. I think win those first 2 games. Come out because this Nets team, they haven't faced that that challenge yet. They haven't faced that adversity because what happens? You go down 0-2, you got 3 top 10 superstars looking at one another like, how the hell did that happen? I think that's the way to go, right? And if the Bucks can get up early, even still one game in Brooklyn, head back home, make the Nets question themselves, that's how you win the series. But let's switch it over to the finals, a potential finals contender, the Clippers. The Clippers, man. Listen, they were my finals pick before the season. They came back from 0-2, 2-0. Listen, Tyron Lue, he's made some adjustments. Luka had a terrible game 4. I think he had less than 20 points. Kawhi Leonard's put up 30, 35, 41, 29 the last game. This team, they're on fire right now the past 2 games. Clippers, because what happens to the Lakers, like, we're not going to get into the Lakers, but the Clippers, if they go out, win the next 2 games, you're on fire. So I don't know. The Clippers, they've impressed me the past 2 games.
Let me tell you guys something. I think when they were down 2-0, everyone's saying, okay, they're going to lose this game. They're going to get swept, right? And then, going into that game, they're like, okay, this is the biggest game in the history of the Clippers because, if they lose, they may lose Kawhi, Paul George, all of that. They're frauds, this and that. Okay. For me, going into that game, I thought to myself, if they lose, absolutely they have to blow it up, and then this has been a failure, no doubt. But if they win this is exactly what's going to propel them to win not only the series, but that's going to take them to the Western Conference Finals at the very least. I think this team is talented enough to do that, and I think given the way they have been playing these past 2 games, and I think they will ultimately continue playing for the rest of the series, I think they will make the Western Conference Finals. And I do think that assuming the Lakers get there and AD is healthy, they will give the Lakers a tough time in the Western Conference Finals because I think this is the adversity this team needed to gain that edge to go far into this playoffs and be a real title contender. I think going in, people had their doubts because, they lost a few games to purposely avoid the Lakers in the first round. But I do think that they needed some sort of adversity to spark a fire in that team. That team just felt like they were playing a little bit of lackadaisical basketball, and we saw that even from the bubble. I think this is the fire that's going to light them into being true title contenders, and I expect them to be in the Western Conference Finals, no doubt.
Yeah, for me, it's all about Kawhi Leonard, not even really the Clippers, because at this point, the Clippers is okay, I'll give credit. Paul George is playing really well, and nobody really wants to talk about it because when Paul George plays well, it's always like, oh, well, let's see him play well in the playoffs, and then when he plays well in the playoffs, it's like there's honestly crickets on my Twitter timeline. Nobody's going to talk about that, which is fine. But he's been playing really well in this series for the most part. And Kawhi has just reminded everyone what playoff Kawhi is all about. Like, this dude is going nuclear. So he's averaging 33 points for the series on less than 19 shots attempted per game. Like, that is ridiculous. He's hitting basically every mid-range shot over the Mavericks defense isn't very good, but they're getting hands in his face and he's still knocking them down. And he's basically I think he's showing everyone that, is Kawhi going to, opt out of his last year of his deal with the Clippers and go to Golden State or go to Miami Heat? No, Kawhi wants to stay in Los Angeles, and he's showing us that he wants to really badly by just absolutely balling and doing everything that he personally can to get this Clippers team to the Western Conference Finals. I will say this, you're right. The Clippers, they should win this series. Coming into Game 4, I thought whoever's going to win Game 4, the Mavericks win, they take a 3-1 lead. The Clippers aren't coming back from that. If the Clippers win, they basically have all the momentum in the world. I just don't see Luka Doncic just had a little bit of shoulder tightness and stuff. He's
having a real neck problem. He's playing with a lot of pain.
Yeah. I mean, because it's like with Luka, he didn't play that well in Game 4, but it's like he's been absolutely incredible in every other game he's faced against the Clippers.
He doesn't have a number 2.
Yeah, I actually want to talk about that in a bit. But in terms of Luka, it's like he's played so well in every other game against the Clippers. Like, it has to be the injury affecting him. And there's just no way the Clippers defense.
See his face as he was playing? He looked so distraught and such pain. The guy's playing through immense pain.
Yeah,
it is a serious injury.
He has to carry this team because Kristaps. I don't even want to. I could go on a long rant about Kristaps.
I don't know what happened to that guy, man.
But I don't want to. I want to finish up my point about the Clippers. Though.
Yeah.
It's like the Clippers, everything really is set up. I think they match up pretty well against the Jazz, who are going to get out of the first round against the Grizzlies. Everything's set up for the Clippers to get to the conference finals, but everything has been set up for the Clippers organization to get to the conference finals before in the Lob City era last year. And something just it just doesn't happen. So it's just one of those things where it's like I just need to see it happen before I put 100% stock into it.
Guys,
but Kawhi Leonard is the guy to make it happen for sure.
Answer this question for me, right? Because I've been struggling with this. I mean, I didn't watch the whole season, right? I've just kind of been in and out, but all playoffs, watching every single game, basically. How the hell is someone 7'1" and grabbing 4 rebounds a game?
Okay, so Chris.
How the hell? Hold on.
Could it
How
be?
the hell is he 7'1" and averaging 13 points a game? Listen, you have Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
You have 7'3". You have Luka Doncic, who's one of the best passers in the game right now, averaging 9 assists a game, had a triple-double pass or 2 games in the series. Luka's making it easy for everyone else. All eyes are on Luka Doncic, and you can't even help.
I have a theory.
You can't even help out. And I want to hear your theories because I'm genuinely confused because this isn't the guy we saw right off the bat with the Mavericks, right? When he first came, I was like, this is them. This is the duo, the dynamic duo. But now I'm looking like you got to get someone else. So answer that question for me. How the hell is someone 7'3" and he's playing so bad? He's a role player right now.
Yeah, I think the issue for Porzingis was injuries. I think injuries have plagued him, and I think he's playing with a fear of getting re-injured again because, as we've seen in years past, he's been getting re-injured and re-injured and re-injured. We saw it last year. We saw it when he was with the Knicks, right? This guy, he started off his career as no doubt one of the better young players in the league, a guy that we saw had superstar potential that will be, arguably a top 10 player in the league even. He showed that much potential, I would argue. But the issue was injuries plagued him early on. And I think there has to be something in the back of his mind that's holding him back because I don't think he got any worse from a playing standpoint. I don't think he got any worse in his skill. I think it's more so he's playing with a fear of getting re-injured because he's been getting injured so often. That's the argument I would use with reference to the rebounding or lack thereof for being a guy that tall. Maybe he's scared to jump up and get all those rebounds because he's scared he's going to land awkwardly and get re-injured. I don't know if his shooting touches off because he hasn't been on the court as often as he's wanted to, but I do think the injuries are playing a massive role. Maybe not in his on-court ability in terms of his skills diminishing more than it is a mental block that isn't allowing him to take that next step. I think it has to do with his injury history 100%.
Yeah, and Pranav, I believe last week on our show, he said it. He's like Porzingis is a 7'3" shooting guard. Like that's his play style. Like the dude plays like a shooting guard. He's like we said, 7'3", and he had like a 6'1", 6'2" Jalen Brunson on him, in the mid post area, and he didn't know he's not going to back him down. He shoots a fadeaway mid range jumper on him, and it bricks. Those are the kind of shots that he takes. Like he can have a 10-inch or 1 foot advantage on a guy, and he's not going to back him down. I mean, he doesn't have the strength to back down many guys, but for being that tall, for God's sakes, you have to be able to get to the rim and back down a guy who's a guard, a 6'2", 6'3" guard. Like you just have to. I understand if you can't, back down like a Joel Embiid or like a 6'10", 6'11" guys, because his frame is pretty small. He's obviously not the strongest player. He's pretty skinny for that height, especially. But yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. Like Porzingis at this point, he's one of the worst. Like his talent, he's the second most talented player on this Mavericks team, just raw skill and talent. And athleticism and all that, but he's like the 4th best best player. Like he just can't put anything together on the basketball court. Like Jalen Brunson is a better basketball player than him.
Max, I went back and looked at the stats. Before his injury, he was averaging 10 rebounds a game this season, right? He got injured at the final portion. He's only played 10, 15 games after, and ever since then, he's averaging 4, 5, 5, 3, 7, 5 rebounds. Like. It has to do with the injury. I think you're correct on that.
Before you guys, I accidentally said he was trying to back down Jalen. Jalen Brunson is on his own team. He's trying to back down Reggie Jackson from the Clippers, who's like 6'1", 6'2", and he shot a mid-range fadeaways over him. So yeah.
So let's talk about something. The Lakers, man. This is what I want to talk about, right? And we got Dana White joining us here. The Lakers, LeBron. Here it is, 2-2. Anthony Davis, your co-partner is down, and I know if you lose this game, it's not all completely on you, but here's your chance. Step the hell up. Like, not that he hasn't in the past, but if you're winning this series, if you're making the finals, this is the game. Because if they lose this game, even if Anthony Davis comes back, I'm sorry, I'm taking the Suns. So, Jake, I want to hear your thoughts. I know you're a huge LeBron James fan. Tonight's the night. LeBron James, 35, 10, 8. Show me something tonight, LeBron.
If so, tonight is interesting because Game 5 LeBron and Game 7 LeBron are just two completely different animals. Sometimes, he'll win Game 5, lose Game 6, and then just completely dominate Game 7. Sometimes he'll lose Game 5 and dominate Game 6, and then, of course, dominate Game 7. But this is really interesting to me because last year, he had kind of a cakewalk. He still won the finals. Like, he won the finals. I mean, come on. But the Suns would have been the clearly the best team that he faced last year in his playoff run. The Suns are a very good team. They're a 2 seed for a reason. They beat the Lakers multiple times in the regular season. But yeah, you said 35. I'm going for more than that. So 2006, right? Wait, 2006? Yeah, 2006 first round versus the Wizards. LeBron hit a buzzer beater in a 120-119 win to take a 3-2 series. He finished with 45 points in 46 minutes, shot 14 of 23. 2007 Eastern Conference Game 5 versus the Pistons. Probably what LeBron James is arguably known most for when he scored 25 of the 29, 25. He scored the last 25
He scored the last
points
25
and
points
29 of the team's
2 overtimes.
final 30 in a double overtime win against Detroit. 2012 dropped 45 points in the Garden in Game 6 down.
His greatest ever performance.
In Game 7. It's 1 and 2 with the one against Detroit and against Golden State. Last or 2 weeks ago, at halftime, I was like, okay, this is whether or not we're about to find out whether or not playoff beast LeBron still exists. The answer to that question was yes. So that question once again tonight has come up once again. Will he answer that question? I think he will. LeBron's going for 40 tonight. They're going to win.
Yeah. And
Anthony Davis, you suck. You are awful. Made of glass.
What is
you
that?
are awful. You are awful. Like awful. Terrible. Come on.
LeBron James fans, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, no, but yeah, I'm super pumped for this game tonight because this is the first time, or we have not seen LeBron James have, I guess the pressure, not really pressure on this game because it's like, even if he loses the series, like he's still arguably the greatest player of all time. Like who cares at the end of the day? But like we haven't seen him with the pressure to carry a team without another co-star really in like the 3 years since like the final Warriors versus Cavs series when he basically had Kevin Love was his second best player. We haven't seen it since then. Since then it's been all his Lakers years. They didn't make the playoffs the first year. Last year, Anthony Davis was healthy throughout that entire run. So he'd never really, and LeBron never really had to carry them like in a single game. But today is good. Tonight's going to be the first time he's had to do that in quite some time. So I'm super anxious to see LeBron. He's been taking it. He's been kind of, I guess passive. There's passive LeBron and then there's aggressive LeBron. Or aggressive LeBron, you can go every series and game that Jake just mentioned and plenty more. That's aggressive LeBron. And passive LeBron is still amazing. Like he's still a triple-double threat. And he's still an incredible passer and defender and a really efficient scorer as well. But aggressive LeBron needs to show up tonight because LeBron's actually been, he's been passive LeBron, which has been good enough for the Lakers so far in this series. But he's got to turn it in. And
yeah, the
thing is with LeBron is you can never make this dude the underdog because every time LeBron James, people think he's the underdog and in any series, he just shuts that down. Like every single time I've ever picked against him, he's just made me pay. So the Lakers somehow, some way, they're going to win the series. Like, I don't care if they lose tonight. I think they'll win game 6 and 7. If they win tonight, then, it's looking good to win game 6. I'm still picking the Lakers because LeBron James, every time he becomes the underdog, he rises to the occasion. And I don't see that being different until he proves me otherwise.
I couldn't agree more. I'm going to trust the greatest player in the history of the game to take care of business tonight with or without AD. And that's no disrespect to the Suns. I think the Suns are a really, really good team, and I think they'll be fighting and make this really competitive. They may even win this game. But I do think that we're going to see, what we'll say in the aggressive LeBron of the past. And I think he's going to absolutely take over this game and prove to everyone why he's still the best player on the planet.
Yeah.
By the way, if the Suns were to win this series, the first non-super team to actually, and again, the excuse can be made if Anthony Davis does not play, because again, this team's not very good with Anthony Davis not on the court. But the first non-super team to beat LeBron since the 2011 Mavericks.
Yeah,
It's
Spurs. 2014 Spurs.
I don't know if 2014 Spurs was a super team, but they were at the the last end of a dynasty.
They were a better team. 2014 Spurs.
But yeah,
do
we want to touch on Anthony Davis a bit? Because Jake.
Yeah, no. Let's hold on. Let's touch on Anthony Davis and Jake. Listen. I respect your opinion, but trash. He is not trash. First off,
no, he's
injury
not
prone.
Not trash.
Injury prone. Yes.
Yeah.
It's I don't know why. It's the brand of basketball they play, right? And it's for me, it's annoying the complaining. Even your GOAT LeBron James, right? Getting a poke to your eye and sitting on the floor for 90 seconds. I'm sorry, the way Anthony Davis falls 5 times a game.
That's just what
Anthony Davis falls 6-7 times a game, and he's had a couple dominant games this series, but it's still, man, you gotta show up. So I hope if he comes back this series, he's still just as dominant. But it's the injuries, and it's sad to say, because I want to give him fair criticism. But the only criticism I have for him, because he stepped up after a terrible game 1, is the fact that he's injured and he's not there when his team needs him the most.
This has been a thing since his early New Orleans days, when he would go to the locker room every other third quarter with something was tight, something was bruised, something was contused. Like since he was in New Orleans, this was a thing, and it was the one knock when that he was the one that LeBron wanted to kind of go on this quest to winning 2 or 3 rings in Los Angeles. And it was, okay, Davis is a top 5 player in the league, but number one priority is availability. Yeah. And Davis is rarely available. When he was available last year, they won the title. Look, he wasn't there in 2018, and he was hurt all of this year. Well, most of this year, LeBron was too. But the playoffs are a different animal. And once again, the playoffs, Davis being hurt. Like, how does this keep happening? Every time he falls, every time he jumps, lands, falls, something happens. And he might play game 6, but this is their biggest game of the year, and he's not available. And it's
my thing is this: last year, Lakers fans, we were all kind of treated, because, and partially due to the bubble, but we were treated to the best version of Anthony Davis that he's displayed in his entire career, because he was fully healthy, and he was. I'm not going to say his health was him being healthy. The bubble certainly helped, his ability to stay healthy, because he had basically an entire offseason to just rest and get right. And then, he didn't have any nagging injuries in the bubble. So that helped him out a lot. And, you also saw his shooting. He was an incredible he was nearly a 40% 3-point shooter in the bubble. That's not Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a solid, decent 3-point shooter, really, for his entire career. He's been good enough. He definitely has plenty of skill on the outside to hit those shots, but his percentages haven't really been that great. But they were excellent in the bubble. No fans. That, I guess, could have played. You could argue that played a factor for a lot of other players, including Anthony Davis. So you saw the health, the shooting. You saw the best version of Anthony Davis. But this year, you're kind of seeing the more realistic version of what Anthony Davis is. That's still an incredible defender, just an incredible two-way player, top 5 in the game. At worst, top 6 or 7. He can be the best player in the league on some nights, but he's not that great of a shooter as he was in the bubble. He's more of a 34%, not 38% shooter from 3-point range. And his health, he has these nagging injuries. He goes down, and Pelicans fans they were talking about it for the longest time with Anthony Davis. It's just he'll be questionable for half their games, and he'll play in a lot of them, but he's just questionable or doubtful or probable. He's just always constantly on the injury list, every week or once every 2 weeks. This is just who he is. Great player, but he definitely has his flaws that we didn't see in the bubble last year in the playoffs, but we're kind of seeing now.
Yeah, and it's sad, because you want Anthony Davis to succeed, right? Like heading into the playoffs, I was like, all right, we saw what happened last year's playoffs. Do it again. Do it again. But this year, not so much. But let's talk about one last series, right? The Blazers versus the Nuggets. So far, every single game, opposite. Blazers, Nuggets, Blazers, Nuggets. This past game, the Blazers blew them out the water, beat them by 20. And that's the formula, right? The formula is outshoot the Nuggets. The Nuggets last game had a terrible shooting game. Just like in game one, the Blazers shot the ball extremely well. Damian Lillard went 1 for 10 from the field last game. 1 for 10 from the field, had about 10 points, I believe. Norman Powell stepped up. Nurkic stepped up. Carmelo stepped up. CJ McCollum stepped up. And that's what's scary. And that's what's making this series an exciting series. So I'm curious to get you guys' thoughts. I'm still rolling with the Blazers, but this series is going 7 because anybody who has an off night, they're going to lose. I'm just taking the Blazers because you got more weapons there versus the Nuggets. It's all around Jokic.
Yeah, I was going to say, the fans in Portland, Oregon are going to look back game 4 and they're going to say that's the Norman Powell game. And that's the game that propelled us into winning this first round series, because I do think that they're going to win game 5 tonight. And game 6 is going to be interesting because I do think this series is very likely to go 7, but who's to say that Portland can't close it out if they win tonight? And I think they will win tonight because I just think that the way that they played last game will give them the confidence to go out and do it again. And listen, I know Jokic is going to ball out because that's what he is. That's what he always does. But who's to say that Michael Porter, where was he last game? He was nowhere to be found. So I'm assuming Michael Porter is going to be playing better this game or tonight. But is that enough to combat the Blazers if they shoot the way they did last game? And I just think that that performance is going to propel them into the pole position to win this series. And I think a lot of it is, I think this series would have been completely going the opposite direction, assuming Jamal Murray was healthy. But now that he's not there and he doesn't provide that extra offensive reinforcement for the Nuggets, I just think that, the Blazers, I'm assuming the Blazers are going to take care of business tonight and ultimately win this series.
Yeah. We got some big time stakes for this game for you, Daniel, because Nuggets win.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw it. Basically, I put up this was a even tonight, man, because I don't know.
This is on Game Changers.
My Celtics are getting smacked right now by the Nets.
The bet was the Celtics need to win 2 games against the Nets, which nope, not happening. They did win 1. He gave you a little bit of hope.
We're only down 8 right now.
But only an 8-point game. Only an 8-point game. Or
the Blazers have to win against the Nuggets, and that's definitely very possible. I'm going to still stick with my Nuggets. Maybe it's just because I picked the Nuggets in 7, so I kind of want to just ride out with my pick. And I also just think that the Nuggets, Jokic, I know Murray's not there, but Mike Malone, this Nuggets core, they just they have a short-term memory. They don't really remember getting blown out because we saw it last year. The Jazz killed them in the first 4 games in the first round in the bubble. They were slapping them, just draining them with 3-pointers. I think there were a couple blowouts in those first 4 games, and they were still able to make a 3-1 comeback. And then they did the same thing with the Clippers. Clippers won pretty handily 3 out of the first 4 games, and then they had double-digit leads, 2 20-point leads, a 20-point lead in Game 5, a 20-point lead in Game 6, and then a double-digit lead in Game 7. And the Nuggets and Jokic did not care, and they still came back and won. I understand Jamal Murray was huge, but I still think that Jokic, this core that's just they don't let those 20-point losses linger for them. They still do have home court games 5 and 7 on their home floor. I think they're going to pull it out in 7. It's going to be really close though. It's Dame or who's going to step up more, Dame or Jokic in Game 7. That's what it's coming down to, and I'm going to stick with Jokic.
Yeah, it's an exciting series, and I don't know, Max. I picked the Blazers to win the series, but I think Jokic and Porter both had bad games. I think the Nuggets take tonight, and then the Blazers come back Game 6. But let's finish it off. The biggest thing in the news so far the past couple of weeks, the fans, right? NBA fans, the way they're treating other players. Celtics fans throwing a bottle at Kyrie Irving. A fan rushing the court at the Sixers game. The first thing I really want to say is fans got to know their place, right? I mean, I've been to games. You go to have fun. You mess around. You yell at the opposing team. That's fun, right? There's a line. I'm sorry. You don't throw things at players. Kevin Durant said it perfectly. They're not zoo animals. Like, they're humans, right? It's all fun and games. I love trash talk. Don't get me wrong. Don't throw things at opposing players. I don't care so much about the rushing the court because that's kind of funny. That's like, shrieking.
It was
same
hilarious.
thing. It's hilarious, but the difference is in spitting on Trae Young. That's Knicks fans, but
there's
that's
a lot
disrespectful. That's disrespectful. So I want to get you guys' take on that, and also like the whole Kyrie Irving stepping on the logo thing. I want to talk about that briefly, but thoughts on just the fans in general.
I mean, I think it's just a matter of the fans being really excited to be back in the arena and the stadiums. And obviously, I'm not defending some of their actions. Like, obviously, there's no room for spitting on players. It's kind of like disgusting, and also there's no room for throwing anything at any player. But when fans, like you said it yourself, Daniel, when fans are streaking onto the court or they're chanting some things or they're being, they're coming up with some antics, it makes the game more fun in a way because, like as a soccer fan, we see that all the time in soccer games, especially the big European matches. But again, I'm not here condoning, the act. I'm not here suggesting that fans should go out and, throw things at players. But I do think that, the NBA doesn't have to, put forward these really strict policies that restrict fan experience. I just think, the fans should just take it among themselves to just realize that, there is no room for throwing stuff or spitting on players because, number one, the spitting is incredibly disgusting, especially with COVID. It's just, it just makes things all worse. But, I think this will ultimately pass because I think it's just a mixture of fans being really excited to be back in their seats. And, I feel like you had to kind of expect this as a league because, you didn't have fans there for almost a year now. So, I mean, it's okay. I just think eventually it'll pass. But, yeah, there's no room for throwing bottles and stuff like that. It's kind of just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what it is, right? Look, the fans, they're back, they're excited, they're amped up, and fan is short for fanatic, right? But for years, like people have streak in the field, and they're like, oh, it's worth it. I'll spend a night in jail, and I get to be on the news, right? It's a perfect 50-50 flip. But and then people were, and I was very surprised that the Celtics fan, he got charged with assault with a deadly weapon, by throwing a water bottle. Like, look, obviously that's ridiculous. Like, let's not act like he got hit by a train or something. Like it didn't even hit Kyrie Irving. Let's not act like he got hit by a bus. But like, I think going forward, long the days are of just spending a night in jail and then getting released for pretty much free, right? With no trial. Like, I think those days are over. The league needs to protect their players, and as more fans get added back to stands, this is going to happen. Like, long the days of just spending a night in jail. Like, this guy, this Celtics fan is going to be the first like guinea pig, and the trial to getting charged with more things. Like 5 years ago, if a guy throws a water bottle at Russell Westbrook or John Wall, he's not going to get a trial charged with assault with a deadly weapon, like he ran over him with his car. But no, I think that's the new thing, and you got to do it.
Yeah, I think it's about cracking down on it. Just, and we can argue whether assault with a deadly weapon should have been like the verdict or whatever, or just the charge. We can debate those semantics, but at the end of the day, because that was the verdict, I doubt many fans will be planning on doing any kind of shenanigans like that for a while. So at the end of the day, I feel like just grand scale, it's perfectly fine for that to be the case. And, it's unfortunate because all this has happened in the span of a week, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, there's just like 5 to 7 instances happening in a 1 week span in the NBA playoffs. Like, that's just insane. And I agree with you, Max. I think it's because, it's been so long since fans have been able to get into an NBA game specifically, because you had the bubble last year. So it's just been a really long time since, it's just been a normal NBA experience for an NBA game. But that's just not really an excuse, obviously, to do any of this kind of stuff. From spitting to throwing things to yelling like racial slurs at like John Morant's parents. Like, none of that is okay. But I think the NBA is doing a perfectly fine job, and I doubt it's going to continue because, these people are getting they're getting kind of what they deserve, and it's gonna I don't what fans are gonna be planning on doing this anytime soon now.
And I think the media is playing a huge role in stopping it, because even if they don't get charged, say theoretically they continue with the system of they just go to jail for a night and that's it. The fact that ESPN, for example, has been glorifying the fan that threw the bottle, and they're showing his face all over the news. They're showing him all over SportsCenter and all these different outlets. I feel like the more fans do that, the more times the media is going to actually focus and put the attention on the fan themselves and expose their face. And I mean, just to use this guy from Boston as an example, I don't think he's going to be getting any job offers anytime soon. I mean, it's just a bad look. I mean, the fact that his face is all over the news for throwing a bottle, and obviously he has the charge to add on top of that, but just the media coverage and the social media coverage is just insane. And we've never seen fans really get this sort of attention, at least for a very, very long time. So I think as long as fans are being called out for their actions, I don't know if the league necessarily needs to be too strong on it, because again, I don't want it to take away from fan experience. But obviously there's no room for racial slurs, there's no room for throwing bottles and spitting. But I think the media is doing a really good job, and also that extends out to social media, in giving these guys the attention they deserve, and ultimately getting the entire country to reprimand them for their actions. And I think that in itself will discourage people from doing these things.
Right.
Yeah. And just to finish off, talk about Kyrie Irving real quick. I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on the whole, listen, I understand the whole Celtics fans talking trash. I mean, even at the Red Sox game, they're chanting, F Kyrie, all that stuff. But my issue comes from Kyrie saying he's bigger than that, right? There's many times where Kyrie Irving comes out, it's like, oh, I don't care about what happened. Like, they were disrespectful, they were being racist, the fans, obviously. But there was no need. Like, listen, this series, first off, from a straight team-to-team standpoint, the Nets are the favorites, blowing them out of the water. Kyrie, why do you care about the Celtics? Why do you care? If you're in a better situation, why do you care? And I think also the media made way too much of it. But at the same time, Kyrie Irving, I had no issue with you once you left the Celtics. But stuff like this, where you're coming out first and saying, "Oh, I'm the bigger man. I don't care what happened there. I'm onto this new team." Step on the logo, man. And like when no one was there, when the Celtics team left the court, you just go and step on it. Come on, man. There's no point to do that. It just be a bigger man than that.
Yeah, it's not really a big it's not, obviously it's not even close to, a lot of people were drawing, just parallels to what Kyrie did and what the fan did, the intentions towards Kyrie. There's nothing there. But you're right, Daniel. It is something that it's just if you've moved on and you've gone to the Nets, you had your experience with the Celtics, but you're past that, and now you guys are the favorite to win the championship. Is there really a reason for you to be doing that? And it's a really small thing, but it's something that, you just wish that he didn't do. But it's really not a big deal at the end of the day.
He's not a Michael Irvin. He's not that type of person. He's not that type of player where he, he carries himself like, oh, I'm the gangster, I'm the disrespectful one. He's not gangster.
Dude, just a few months ago, he was in Boston.
That's not who he is, dude.
He was in Boston carrying incense around the court. I mean, let's not forget this, the same guy. So and he's trying to rid of the negative energy, which, honestly, I thought that was hilarious. But, now, if anything, he's bringing on more negative energy because he's doing, stupid things like this. So I feel like he's kind of a hypocrite in the way he's acting right now. Exactly. And I agree with Daniel. I think this is definitely not who he is. And, if you don't want bad things to happen to you, don't instigate it. I think he's instigating a lot of it. So you got to be smarter, Kyrie.
Also, Celtics fans, can you just get over, you guys were trashing Kyrie in the second round for playing terrible against the Bucks, as you should have, and now you're
well, don't hold on.
You want him back.
That's fair. That's fair. I never trashed him. I understood.
Yeah, I know. It's just I don't understand. Yeah. I understand Boston fans are kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But can you guys just get over it? Yeah. You guys have Jason Tatum, all right? You're fine.
Well, no Jaylen Brown, but let's go out here and win the game tonight. But guys, thank you all for tuning in. If you guys still here with us, make sure you guys subscribe to the TWSN YouTube channel. Subscribe to the TWSN YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Everywhere. We got a mobile app, guys. The TWSN mobile app. So you know where to find us. And Will, Max, Jake, I will see you guys next week, every single Tuesday night. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.